Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review covers the re-released version of the Revell Stuka and the Tank Buster version, the JU 87G-1 in 1/48 scale. It's model kit number 85-5270, and Revell has rated this a skill level 4 for ages 12 and above, which suggesting about 5 hours of build time. In the box you'll get 53 parts, molded in light gray and clear, with water slide decals that are very nice but thick with crisp edges, and flawless adhesion. From the underwing cannons to the multi-piece canopy, this kit's an easy builder, with only a few issues. And it's been around a long time, at least 1968, and the molding technology from that era is still evident, as it'll take some time for extra test fitting and filling to do this kit properly. But after you're done, you'll have a great looking Stuka at a great price, and this will fit the bill for that. Overall dimensions are approximately 9 1/4 inch long, 12 1/4 inch wingspan, and 3 inches in height. The kit's contents come poly-bagged like this, but always remember to follow the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines when using any of the products mentioned here for your own protection. For this paint job, we'll be using some Tamiya acrylic XF1 flat black, some XF60 flat dark yellow, and some XF23 flat light blue. The rubber parts will be XF85 rubber black, and there will be XF81 flat dark green REF2 for the camo. Now pull out the 4 pieces required for the cockpit and realize that there's just a platform, 2 seats, and a joystick. There's 2 crew members with this kit too, but I chose not to put those into place, although they would kind of cover up the fact that there's very little detail in the cockpit area. Paint the interior area by the cockpit opening a dark gray, and gather up the prop shaft, the prop, and the firewall/instrument gauge cluster, and assemble those. Then get ready to install the rest of the cockpit floor with the seats on it into the craft. Add the instrument cluster decal to the dash panel and install that too. Match up the 2 fuselage halves and glue those together, and use some rubber bands to keep them tight until the glue sets. You'll notice there are some seams here that'll have to be filled. The 2 fuselage halves fit pretty well together, but the underside has a little bit more pronounced seam there, as well as an attachment point where the sprue was at the injection site to fill for completion. Now if you look closely here, you'll see that there's some sprue marks there, so you'll need to take your time, sand it smooth, and then fill that along with the seam along the top and the bottom. I go over the kit at this point and clean any excess flash or pin marks, and I've filled the seam with some dry Dex powder that you mix. Filling medium is a matter of preference, and you can use any good quality modeling putty that you find at a model shop, or even some Bondo or 3M spot glazing putty for automotive use. You'll find the copyright mark here. Just shave it off and then sand it smooth with some sandpaper. Note the locations here that are being pointed out by the red arrows. These are the mounting holes for the wing mounted cannons, and you'll need to use your X-Acto knife blade tip or a small drill bit to open those up to accept them. Now you can assemble the wings by adding the pivot tube and the top wings to the bottom wings, and get those ready to mount onto the fuselage. Gluing the wing into place, you'll find that there's very little seams on the top side, but underneath there's several places that will need to be addressed. Test fit the parts for the landing gear, and then assemble those with the wheels inside the wheel pants. And you'll see some small gaps on each side of the wheel pants, so those will need to be filled also. Gather the parts and test fit them for the tail section of the plane, then install them into place using some good strong glue. They fit pretty well, so there shouldn't be any issues here. Add the supporting struts into place and make sure that the tail planes are horizontal. Now gather the parts for the cannon and the ducts there that go on the underside of the plane, And note that the red arrow here is pointing towards a correct gun. That would be your port side or left gun. And the other one is actually just a duplicate of that. To make it correct, you would actually have to re-engineer the opening there to flip the stabilizer around so that the short side on both of them point toward the landing gear. There's also 4 small parts here that are installed to the wing flaps on the underside. So align those up and make sure that they're in proper alignment and glue those into place. Add the cannon mounts that run perpendicular to the leading edge there, just this side of where the mock-up is for the wheel spats. Gather the wing cannons and glue those into place on the wing mounts that we just added. Glue the landing gear into place and make sure everything's parallel with the fuselage. I sprayed another coat of white primer to look for any imperfections in the body. Here's a top view of the kit in primer to this point. I sprayed the bottom of the plane with the XF-23 light blue, which looks like the German light blue color for those aircraft. Because the top side had some darker camo, I was able to get by with a black Sharpie to accentuate the panel lines to give them some depth. But if you have a light color, it would bleed through and you'd need to airbrush them. I laid down some light green here for the camo pattern and then followed that up with a light sanding to take down some of the raised panel lines. And I followed that up with a splinter pattern of dark green camo. After the color coats had dried, I followed up with a gloss clear coat to provide some adhesion surface for the decals. I gave the body an overall black wash with some very thin black paint. To paint the yellow stripe on the fuselage, I taped it off with some good quality tape, and then I painted it flat white, followed up by the yellow that is used for the German aircraft. I used the same technique for the bottom and top wing tips. Here are the decals for the kit, and I strongly recommend that you use a decal setting solution like Microscale Industries products to make sure that they follow the contours of your model. If you skip the gloss coat, you're likely to end up with what's called silvering on your decals. But as you can see here, they blend in pretty well to the plane's surface. Take a look at the placement of the decals for both the underside and for the top side of your model. This thing's really starting to take shape now. I added some what we call chipping to my model. You just use a small brush and place some tiny dabs of silver in the high traffic areas to make it have a used and battle tested look. I continued around the airframe to add some chipping to areas like the prop blades and walk areas and slide areas of the cockpit glass and mechanism, and that gives you that weathered look we talked about earlier. Now that all the weathering effects have been done, you should take and spray the plane again with some matte finish paint. Gather the pieces for the canopy, and I just paint the frame with a brush, and then I use a toothpick and some water to clean it up. If you use acrylic, it'll come right off. Now glue the canopy and the antenna mast into place on the fuselage. I used some stretched sprue for my aerial wire. The lower is the sprue, and then if you just slowly heat it up over a heat source like a lighter or a candle and pull it apart, it gets thinner and thinner, almost like thread to use for things like antenna masts or antenna wires. Well, there you have it. This is an older kit, and while the interior is a little sparse, the exterior has some great detail. With a lot of test fitting and some filling, this turns out to be a really nice looking model at a bargain basement price. I think it'll go well on your shelf, but remember, it's going to take a little intermediate skills and a little extra work. We hope you've liked this step-by-step how to build it review, and so that you don't miss any more,
please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can find us on Facebook and at our website www.rideonreplicas.com. Thanks.